At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality walking shoes, which might lead to another discovery.
40,000 steps, baby. Who's on top now, Karen?
You've taken the office step challenge a step too far. Don't worry, though. Sierra also has yoga gear. It might be a good place to find your zen. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Knowing you could be saving money for the things you really want is a great feeling. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can choose to bundle and save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
The spirit of innovation is deeply ingrained in America, and Google is helping Americans innovate in ways both big and small. The Air Force Research Laboratory is partnering with Google Cloud using AI to accelerate defense research for air, space, and cyberspace forces. This is a new era of American innovation. Find out more at g.co/American innovation.
Hello and welcome back to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast and our match report following Forest's win. Finally a win after 4 games without a win away at West Ham United by 2-1. It was a goal in the first half from Gibbs-White and a second half goal that was eventually given for Nikola Milenković. A late consolation for Jarrod Bowen, but Forest did get the job done after 17 minutes of stoppage time later. Forest are now still 7th, but they are a point off 3rd place as we talk going into the final game. I'm your host, George Edwards. I've just got back from the game, as has Tom Newton, after a couple of weeks away from the podcast and a couple of weeks away from Forest. Tom's back, and back with a bang, Tom. Hope you enjoyed that one.
Yes, I mean, we've been a bit freaky, haven't we, over recent weeks, just not getting wins, and obviously last week against Leicester where we didn't see it over the line. So, yeah, nice to be back with a win, and sets up a tasty game next week at home against Chelsea. Absolutely. We all thought it was going to be, wasn't it? And it's not quite the Champions League playoff. It could have been with us 6th and Chelsea 5th, but near enough. We'll start with the podcast by talking about Taiwo. I think the lads dedicated both goals and the win to Taiwo. I think a lot of Forest sort of resilience and mental strength going through it was dedicated towards him. And they really did him proud, Tom, going into the game and getting the win for him. I think it just certainly gave them something extra, didn't it? Yeah, but I think Taiwo's been in our thoughts all week. It really looked horrible, didn't it, last week against Leicester? And then the news come out that he's had to rush into hospital, then obviously the emergency surgery and putting in an induced coma. And yeah, I think football has taken a back seat this week, hasn't it? Because first and foremost, we want to make sure Taiwo's all right. And thankfully he's on the mend. But I think the players and the fans did him proud today because obviously, as we saw, there was a lot of Nigerian shirts with Awoniyi's name on the back. There was scarves, weren't they? Flags, even Forest shirts with Awoniyi's name, and obviously the players wore T-shirts in the warm-up. So, I think we've done Taiwo proud this week. I think he's had a really tough season. He just hasn't had a break, has he? It's been stop-start, injury after injury. Then obviously what happened last week was pretty horrific. So hopefully... like I said, we don't know what's going to happen with his future or whatever, but first and foremost, we wish him speedy recovery. And you do feel sorry for him because, you mentioned injury there, but this has probably been his injury-free-less season. He's been available for most of the season. He's just been out of the team because of Woods sort of being the number one striker, if you like. But, I think when something like this happens, football is very good at coming together and teams are very good at uniting behind that player. But it does show how close the Forest dressing room is. With how I dedicate it to him. Yeah, it's a very close-knit. And the close-knit club we are, it's probably put us where we are in the league. I know we've been up there all season. I know we've dropped off in recent weeks, and we'll come to it in this match report regarding this squad depth, etc. But a United club has obviously kept us in this top 10 all season. So, and I think that goes from the top of how Milenković reacted last week. There's a lot of the self-appointed Prime Minister of Football going, Neville waded in, didn't he, for a cheap shot. And I think it was just a case that Milenković just cared about the welfare of the player. And I think first and foremost, that's yeah, we know he's obviously a colourful character, but I think he was more bothered about the welfare of his player, and then obviously everybody waded in, and it shows you that we are a united club, and that starts on the top with Mr. Marinakis.
Yeah, you'd definitely rather have an owner like him than somebody like the Glazers, who would never even be seen in the same country, let alone in the same stadium.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's get on to the...
Yeah, just saying, exactly, vacant owners. You want to see somebody obviously front and centre, which Marinakis is most weeks.
Yeah, and I believe, Sky will probably be there on Saturday. I believe Gary Neville, is he still banned from the City Ground for his mafia comments? So good luck with that, Gary. So we'll get on to the team news then. I believe there was just one change from the Leicester match. Murillo fit again, or semi-fit again, fit to start anyway, allegedly, coming in for Morato. So Matt Sells played in goal. There was a back four of Nico Williams, Murillo, Milenković and Ola Aina. Nico Dominguez and Ibrahim Sangare in midfield, with Anderson, Gibbs-White and Elanga behind Chris Wood up front. Now, I thought that would signify once again Nico Dominguez out wide. Obviously, it's subject to change, isn't it? Because Anderson, Gibbs-White, Elanga and Dominguez all sort of interchange positions. But as it was Dominguez next to Sangare. And I thought that worked a lot better because Dominguez I think, is stronger in midfield and was possibly our best player against Leicester. So what were your thoughts on the team news, Tom?
Yeah, pretty much picks itself at the moment. We knew Hudson-Odoi will be in the squad, but not necessarily starting. And it picks itself. It's nice to have Aina back. The back four, back five, including Sells, picks itself. Then the midfield he's got Sangare back, and I thought he had his best game for Forest today. I just think for 80 minutes, every time he got the ball, he was always looking to play it forward. He was like pinging it into like Gibbs-White, then he was like pinging it into Williams on the left and Aina on the right. And I thought he had a really, really good game, Sangare. With him, sometimes the play, like, you need to get people who... But I just think that because he's not the quickest, is he? But once you get him on the ball, he is really effective. So if you put him in the midfield and put like legs around him, you can probably make do with his limitations, i.e. when play bypasses him. But get him on the ball. People says the other month, it's only against Exeter, and you only can play with what's in front of you. But he's always looking for that forward pass, and I thought now he's got fit. He does look the player who we thought he would be when we signed him from PSV start of last season.
Yeah, I think certainly in these games it suits him. Whether he can start yet against your Man Cities, your Liverpools and stuff like that, it waits to be seen. But Forest have got the options to change it in those games, and that's always a positive thing, I suppose. So in terms of the start of the game, then, it was quite open to start with. I think Sal's made a save after pretty much 30 seconds, didn't he? Soufal's ball in, Soucek gets a header, and it's a very good save from Matt Sells to tip it over the bar. Forest went up the other end a few minutes later, and from a ridiculously surprising Ola Aina long throw, found Gibbs-White in the middle. He chests it down about 6 yards out and volleys it, but he's closed down and it goes straight to Areola. But I wonder whether we'd see Forest be maybe quite timid and want to sort of pack in, try and get to half-time at 0-0, Tom. But early on, I think you saw Forest were trying to be rampant and taking the game to West Ham was a positive sign.
Yeah, we all know that West Ham haven't had the greatest of seasons. They had Lopetegui and Potter's gone in, and I think he's still trying to work out what he wants from a West Ham side. After that scare from Soucek, Forest settled into the game really well, didn't they? Were really knocking it around with a bit of confidence and everything. And I think Gibbs-White was mentioned on Radio Nottingham post-match that he should have scored that chance, but a few minutes later, he was absolutely gifted and he couldn't miss, could he? So, and it was nice to actually, because we all know he's had a tough few weeks. Obviously, people have been accusing him he's had somewhere else, i.e. at the Etihad, and this, that and the other. But I thought Morgan had a really, really good game today, and he was like the focal point of many of our attacks. So, I thought he deserved his goal today.
Yeah, absolutely. And he got nominated, didn't he, for Player of the Season for the Premier League award. And many Forest fans, I think, were surprised by that, because if you watch Forest week in and out, you think Milenković has transformed us, Sells makes save after save, and maybe even Williams. But if you're watching Forest from an outsider's perspective, everything you see is Gibbs-White. He's always involved in attacking moves, winning the ball back as our captain. And I can see exactly why maybe Forest fans don't think it, but why exterior people watching Forest would think Gibbs-White actually nomination for Player of the Season. He probably isn't going to win it. I think Chris Wood will win it over him, but there's only going to be one in terms of Mo Salah winning that this season. But Gibbs-White showed today exactly why he's in for that award. The goal after 15 minutes, it's a it's a pressing goal from Forest, which doesn't happen very often. We don't often press teams, do we? But it's from a goal kick. Ilanga, I think, is on Areola, isn't he? And it's a pretty poor ball from Areola, to be fair. Gibbs-White reads it, gets a touch, and taps it in after 15 minutes. Perfect start, entirely self-inflicted by West Ham, Tom. And yeah, like you mentioned, a very different goal for Forest to score, but a refreshing one nonetheless.
Yeah, definitely. I think Forest smelled a bit of blood there, because I think they tried it a couple of minutes early and it just didn't get there in time, did they? But they pressed them, and Areola, it's a bit suicidal, isn't it, playing it that close to with Gibbs-White in the vicinity, and you can't miss, can you? And it's a really well taken goal by Morgan, and then obviously a nice tribute within the celebration with holding Taiwo's shirt aloft. So yeah, I think we needed that. Just settle everybody down, because obviously at 0-0 with players like obviously Kudos and Bowen, obviously there's a lot of danger there, and obviously that chance what they had in the first minute or so from Souček. So yeah, just settled everybody down. And after goal, I thought Forest would play some really, really good stuff. They were getting behind West Ham, and yeah, I think it was one of those where Forest just needed to keep on playing, because there's this tendency in recent weeks and months where Forest have been on the front foot, really good tempo, haven't got the rewards from it, and then they've sat back and invited the other team on, i.e. Leicester last week. I thought they started the game really well, Forest. Then Cody scored from that decent save from just puts a bit of anxiety within the City ground last week, wasn't it? It's like nothing went for us, and then obviously we got the equaliser and made it 2-1. But yeah, it was nice to get that first goal and everything, settle everything down. And yeah, I thought Forest up until half time, I thought they played some decent stuff.
Yeah, they sort of went back into their own ways, didn't they? It was nice to get a first goal. I think it's the first time they scored the first goal in the match since Tottenham away. And then Forest just adapted to it quite easily. I don't think they ever dominated the game, but they had reasonable control of it. They felt comfortable with where West Ham were, and West Ham, obviously, with being a Graham Potter team, had more of the ball. But Forest were happy to let them do that, hit them on the break now and again, and Forest just almost fell naturally into their away performance, into their game set, the game plan. It fell perfectly into them. They had a few chances. I think Wood has 3 chances, really. He hits the post from an Anderson corner, maybe about 10 minutes after the goal, and then there's just towards half time, he has a ball through. I think it's from Milenković. Sees the first passes, doesn't he? Passes to Ilanga when I think he should have shot. And then the rebound comes back to him and the keeper saves it. I think it was offside anyway. It felt like one of them where Wood was just never going to score. I think he had a similar game at Southampton, from what I remember, where he had 3 or 4 chances where he was never going to score. But heading towards half-time, Tom, I didn't really feel any threat from West Ham. I don't know about you.
No, and with Forest this season, little is more, isn't it? I.e., fewer passes to get into the final third. You don't need to arse around with the ball for for no reason at all. I'm looking at the likes of Southampton, just pass it around for sake of passing it around. So yeah, Forest got back to their old ways of being direct and try and get it into the final third as quickly as possible. And I put on Twitter halfway through the first half that it's really refreshing. As soon as Sangari's had his critics, people are always going to say, "Oh, it's 30 million. He can't do this and he can't do that." And then people were mentioning about the game against Exeter and it's only against Exeter, they're struggling in League One. But today, every time Sangari picked up the ball, he was always looking for that early forward pass, and it's so refreshing. It's once you get the opponents turning back to their own goal, things open up. And I thought, Sangari had his best game in a Forest shirt today, and he lasted 80 odd minutes, and
it's good for him.
Yeah, definitely. And it giving him a bit of confidence. And near me, there's some lads who got a song going. And I just don't think he's ever got going in a Forest shirt, because obviously form. Did he have malaria last year? Then the AFCON as well. And then his hamstring earlier this season. But yeah, he just hasn't got going, has he, this season? And now he's had a few starts in recent weeks. And I thought he played really well today.
And he sums up Forest, the whole team, doesn't he? With the fact that he's been cast away, he's been written off, he's had tough times, but he's found a way to be heard. He's found a way to be back in the starting 11 and to really, at the minute, I think, be undroppable. Obviously, I mentioned earlier about the sort of tougher games that you might not trust him in, but next to Anderson, next to Dominguez, he's forming an understanding with Gibbs-White as well. I think, as you mentioned, he found Gibbs-White countless times in that midfield, and I think Gibbs-White got man of the match, didn't he? And had one of his best games. But Sangara really shows that everybody's together, everybody can come in and do a job, and nobody sort of feels written off. And I think Nuno's made a few decisions this season, hasn't he? Leaving Jota out, leaving countless players out. He left both wingers out at one game, but nobody ever complains. They just crack on and they're all invested in what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, consistency has been massive for us this season. Obviously, keeping like partnerships going, i.e. Murillo and Milenković. And in the last few games, like Sangaro's getting a real understanding with Dominguez Anderson around him kind of thing. But having said that, I know it sounds contradictory, but like having a small squad and only using 13 or 14 players is obviously really upset us in recent weeks because we haven't got that strength in depth, and some players are playing on fumes at the moment, aren't they? Kind of thing. And when you look at the likes of our so-called Champions League rivals, Villa, they can bring on the likes of Rashford and Asensio, and Chelsea have got about 4 squads, haven't they? And Newcastle have got like Gordon, Lewis Miley, Murphy. So yeah, we will get there. I just think we've just suffered in recent weeks with the depth of squad, where whether it's on Nuno where he says he wants a smaller squad, but yeah, I just think in recent weeks if we did have that strength in depth, we could have been nailing a Champions League place for next year. But it is what it is, unfortunately, isn't it? I don't think we'll get Champions League, but you never know in football, do you? So it's all set up for a brilliant game next Sunday against Chelsea.
I think it's about trusting as well, there, because there is the players there. You know, we've got Sousa and Jota to fill the void of a winger that Dominguez has been playing, but Nuno just doesn't trust them, and it's about getting the right players in those gaps. I mean, Morata coming off the bench for me, we'll mention it later, isn't at the quality to keep doing that on a consistent level because the level keeps dropping when he comes off. So it's all right having the numbers, but you've got to have the trust in them and they'll be up to the quality.
Yeah, I don't get the Ramon Sosa one because he's never let us down. I mean,
there's been some Everton, didn't he? And we had a good foothold in that game.
Yeah, and he had a really good game when he came on against West Ham at home earlier in the season. He nearly scored if it wasn't for an unbelievable save from Fabianski. He come on against Villa and I thought he did okay. So, and then obviously in the Cup, he scored against Luton, scored against Exeter. But yeah, for whatever reason, Nuno doesn't fancy him. And it's a bit of a strange one because we spent the majority of last summer getting him from Tellez, and their chairman says he's not going for unless you pay this money. And we're paid. It was a bit of a gamble because obviously coming from South America, other side of the world and everything, coming into like the hardest league in world football in the Premier League, and I thought he adapted pretty well. He scored against Brighton, didn't he, away from home? But Nuno's just not fancied him for whatever reason. And to be honest, Nuno's never been asked the question, has he? But yeah, every time Sosa's played, I thought he's been spectacular by any stretch, but he's got that bit of quality, what you can work with, whether it's a Forest thing of like just bedding him in this season, obviously adapt with a new culture, etc., and see what happens in the summer. But yeah, it'd be a real shame if after one season he's written off. But I do think there's a player in there.
Yeah, definitely. I think he struggles. Jota comes on and has that spirited impact and it can be held straight away, whereas I don't think Sousa has that. You know, I think he needs like the team to start on again to get a foot on and get a feel for it. So that's probably where he comes down a bit. Yeah. But anyway, we'll get on to the second half. It was 1-0 at half time. Forest started the second half quite poorly from what I remember. There was a few early yellow cards, but nothing really of note. And then West Ham made about 3 subs on 60 minutes. Then a minute later, the goal from Forest came. So the second goal, free kick on the left wing. Ilanga, good position, fizzes it into a dangerous area and everybody in the way and thinks it goes straight in. As it turns out, Milenković got a little flick on it and it went into the back of the net. Now, as you'll know, there was a ridiculous delay on that goal. I think it was about 7 or 8 minutes and people in the stadium had not a clue. There was not even an announcement to say that there was a VAR check going on. The referee was waltzing around like he owned the place, going over to talk to the managers, and nothing related to the fans. It actually got to a point about 4 minutes into it where I rang somebody who was watching the game to ask them what was going on. And that is just absolutely crazy, Tom. So talk me through your confusion as I did.
It's an absolute joke. So, yeah, firstly, we got the free kick, didn't we? Langer got brought down by, was it Paquetá?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was silly challenge, really.
Yeah, like yourself, I thought it went straight in. And my dad said, whip this with a load of pace and you never know. And we thought it went straight into top corner. And then everybody went to the centre spot. West Ham players were we've conceded a goal.
Yeah.
And then next minute is like, who was the ref?
Sam Barrett. Yeah.
Sam Barrett. So, and he's talking to Gibbs-White, and Gibbs-White like, what's the delay kind of thing? And then 6.5 minutes or whatever it was, I could have left the ground, gone to do like early Christmas shopping at the Westfield, come back and they'll still be like sorting out the decision. It's just an absolute farce. Like you say, nobody knew what was happening. Then it got revealed that the semi-automated offside wasn't available. What's all that about? I thought that was meant to be in place to stop
this happening.
Stop this happening. Then somebody sent me a video and I can't see what's happening. Then somebody says, Areola was blocked, which is absolute nonsense. And I'm like, and everybody around me is like, well, if you keep doing this, it's like you're trying to find something what's not there. Then Maradona of the Midlands on our group chat says they're getting the lines out, and it's like, just give us the goal. And it's like, it must have gone like the referee had gone to the touchline and said to like Graham Potter, "What do you want to do? Because you've got nothing to play for." And it's like, I want to get home, just give them the goal kind of thing. It felt like that, and then they had some like long-winded explanation on the big screens at either end of the London stadium, but I just went on too long, and nobody wants that in football. I just think there should be like in cricket, where you have a review.
15 seconds,
just 15 seconds. And I've always been of the opinion of this, and Howard Webb, for whatever reason, says he can't do it. Each team have two appeals, kind of thing, two appeals. And it's like the manager should just look at like a laptop and say, or an iPad and say, can I make a review on that kind of thing? It will just stop all this like nonsense. But it's meant to be quicker, and it isn't. So
no, it was a complete joke. But Forest got the goal in the end. That was the main thing. And from there, I think the game settled how Forest exactly wanted it to be. West Ham offered very little threat. They had a chance. I think it was Soler, wasn't it? They moved it from right to left into the middle. He fakes a shot from the edge of the box. All the Forest players fall for it and try and block it, and then he gets space to get the shot off on his right foot, and that Sells parries away. Now, apart from that, I think Forest felt quite resolute. They opposed any West Ham pressure. They were happy for them to have the ball and never really conceding, Tom. And I thought really we're going to coast home for a 2-0 victory quite comfortably.
Yeah, well, I mean, the players obviously started the game like Kufo, Souček, Cresswell, etc. I think they just like started them for like a goodbye kind of thing. Then when they brought the big guns on, you just knew they were going to have a bit more quality in the final third and everything. And then we brought Morata on, which I didn't think it was needed really, because they were probably looking to like finish on like a high at the end of the season in front of the home crowd kind of thing. And then we've brought Morata on, it just invites pressure. When you've got the likes of Elanga, Hudson-Odoi waiting in the wings, it just attack is the best form of defence, isn't it? So, at the end of the day, we invite too much pressure on ourselves. Nuno, but even if it's just a goal lead or whatever, but today it was a 2-goal lead, so it probably like wasn't needed. But we've invited pressure on, and like Milenković doesn't react. Morata, it's a bit of a half-arse clearance header, isn't it? And then Bowen lashes it in, and then obviously on tender hooks for the Romanian, how many minutes it was, and then obviously he put 11 minutes on the board, didn't he? And then obviously the shenanigans at the end where we had the ball in the near our corner flag where Forest fans were, and then he took it all the way back from where the ball was last.
It was silly.
It was. But no, it's nice to get an away win, and then like I said previous in the podcast, it's nice to set up a game against Chelsea. And like you say, I've been watching football for a good few years now, and you just don't know what's going to happen next Sunday. And it's been a fantastic season. It would have been nice to get Champions League. We might still get Champions League, even though it's probably a very, very limited chance. But like you say, you just don't know in football. Somebody could do us a massive favour next week, and could be going to this like Bernabeu or San Siro. We just don't know, do we?
Well, relying on Man United to do you favours is something that I really don't believe in. But I'll talk you through what Tom was mentioning there. I mean, the subs, I found it quite baffling, because I thought you could see Murillo, Milenković, Aina and Wood all on their knees, crestfallen. Murillo obviously has the injury that we thought would take him off at the break, and he's limping by the end. So I thought he'd take one of them off. Obviously, Murillo, Milenković, if you can avoid it, maybe not, but maybe bring Toffolo on for Aina, maybe stick Jota on for Wood. But he takes Sangare, Gibbs-White, Anderson off the real sort of core of our midfield, who were coping reasonably well with the threat, goes to the back three, and then we concede. I think it's 3 minutes later, isn't it? It's the ball over the top's quite harmless, it looks, but Milenković doesn't react. Nico doesn't really react until it drops. There's 2 West Ham players around it. And then, I was on Morato, I think, for the goal, because I really think his impact off the bench has gone. And I think that substitution doesn't work anymore. It worked earlier in the season when Forest had such momentum, but now I just think it invites so much unnecessary pressure that there's no point in doing it. And I know Willie Boyle wasn't on the bench, but I'd like to see him used a lot more and maybe over Morato in these situations. But yeah, he heads it straight to Bowen. It's a brilliant flick and finish from Jarrod Bowen. There's not much once Morato's headed it that Williams could have done about that. And yeah, then we see that anxious 11 minutes go up. It turned into 17 by the end. There was a full crook header that Sells saved from a corner. And apart from that, that was it really. And then, yeah, I mean, that was ridiculous from Sam Barrett by the end. The ball's cleared by Forest. Chris Wood's breaking away. There's literally 2 seconds left. He could blow for full time, but he instead blows the whistle for something nobody's seen. There's a ridiculous scrap. There's then 4 yellow cards, which, to be honest, it wasn't that type of game, really. There wasn't much bite in it. I think Sam Barrett just wanted to be the show because he dished out his cards, walked around the pitch, like I mentioned, like he was walking his dog in the park, didn't he? He was walking over to the bench. Then he walked over from the edge of the box to Chris Wood, who was in our half, or the West Ham half, just to pick the ball up, and then walked back, gave it, kicked off, and it was full time. So it was an absolute car crash from him, to be honest, and I think he wanted to be the show. But the main thing was that Forest won, wasn't it, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, he could have just done it that in bud, like you said, just like we already played over the allocated time. I know it's a minimum of 11 minutes, but just like full-time whistle. Then if there's any fracas at the end, just book whoever you see kind of thing. But yeah, it just got beyond a joke. But yeah, thankfully we held out for a 2-1 win. And yeah, it all sets up next week, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take a break. We'll look ahead to next week and we'll get a view from the opposition.
The 1865 Match Report.
Eczema isn't always obvious, but it's real. And so is the relief from Ebglyss. After an initial dosing phase of 16 weeks, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Searching for real relief? Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
Hello and welcome back to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast, and a match report following Forest's win away at the London Stadium by 2-1 against West Ham. So it was Forest's 10th win away from home in the season, which is quite mind-boggling, to be fair. I mean, in the first 2 seasons, scoring a goal away from home was quite an achievement, Tom, wasn't it? But now we've got more wins than we have losses and draws combined. We've got the second best away record with 33 points. It's quite staggering. And it just goes to show the progress that we've made so quickly, doesn't it? And you think of Anfield and of Old Trafford and some brilliant memories that we've had this season. So it was a very good way to round off a brilliant season away from home.
Yeah, regarding the away record, it's been a very, very good this season. It's as enhances to do the double over the likes of West Ham, Man United, etc., Spurs. But yeah, it's a massive progression from our first season where we only got 1 win against Southampton, and each season we've been progressing, and this season's been phenomenal. And it's been one of those seasons for the generations, hasn't it? Because this is the highest finish we've had since, the 94-95 season. So, yeah, this season's been phenomenal, and we just need to keep making progress, keep our best players, add to the squad. I think the way Marinakis wants this club to go, I think it's a matter of sustaining top 10 finishes each season, and our club's only going to go on to bigger and better things as we keep sustaining this top 10 status in the Premier League. So yeah, we're going in the right direction, and the club's in a very good place at the moment. And also we've had great away days such as Anfield, which was a phenomenal result, and Goodison Park, where Everton fans have emotionally said goodbye to the grand old lady of English football today in an emotional send-off. And this season we've become a really established Premier League side competing away from home, because in the first season, every time I left an NG postcode, we used to put out the red carpet, etc. And Forest are slowly becoming an established Premier League club, competing home and away. And that's given us the platform to hopefully compete in Europe next year, keep getting better players and sustain our Premier League status, and hopefully sustain top 10 finishes for seasons to come.
Yeah. All right. I think Tom has got to leave us to do fathering duty. So thank you very much for joining us, Tom.
No problem.
Hope the little one is all right, and we'll see you soon.
I'm sure he will be. Nice one. And next season we crack on again. So enjoy Europe, everyone.
Yes, indeed, Tom. Thank you very much. Good luck with that.
Cheers, bye.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Tom. We're now going to get a view from the opposition, and we're going to be joined by James from the We Are West Ham podcast.
Oh, chaps, James from the We Are West Ham podcast. A bit of a strange game, that. Obviously, for us, it meant nothing. We've got nothing to play for. We haven't done for a few weeks. Off the back of a really good victory at United last week, gave us a little bit of confidence, but gifting you an early goal in the way that we did kind of meant that I think a lot of the players out there are probably just a bit like, it don't really matter now. There's a lot of West Ham players out there probably playing for their futures, but beyond that, it was just a very strange game for us. I think all in all, given that we gifted you the first goal, we probably would have, I think a point probably would have been a fair result had we not given you that goal early on. I think a 1-1 in the end may have been fair. We both had some very, very good chances in both halves. But I think, given the season that Nottingham Forest have had, you'd like to think that probably, you take the 3 points and you've got a lot more to play for between over the next 7 days, that, the 3 points probably feels a lot more important to you guys than it would do if we'd have nicked it at the end. So, strange game. Don't really know what to say. I mean, I've kind of been quite apathetic about West Ham for the last month, ever since we were mathematically safe. We've got nothing to play for. Just looking forward to seeing what Graham Potter does in the summer in terms of the transfer window, because it's currently not his team, so it's very difficult to make a judgment on him. But quite surprised with Forest's season. I'm sure you guys are as well. And it'd be interesting to see what happens next week, whether you can get into the Europa League or sneak a Conference League position. And I will say, guys, if you do get in the Conference League, it's a fantastic competition. One of the best competitions West Ham have ever been in. I mean, obviously. But yeah, if you get in the Conference League, you should win it, guys, because it's a difficult competition, but Forest are decent, so you should go on and win it. So that'd be pretty good for you guys anyway. But all the best for the rest of the season, for the next week, and looking forward to playing you guys again next year. Cheers.
Okay, thank you very much, James. Now, just before I leave you, let's just do a little sit-rep of the top 7. So Forest are on 65 points and Newcastle in third are on 66. So it's quite staggering as to how close it is. We all thought it would be this close by the end, but I guess everybody thought Forest would maybe be at the top of the race rather than being the trailing pack. So Forest with Chelsea on Sunday have really got to win that, and then just hope that maybe Manchester City drop points to Bournemouth and Fulham, who they've got in their final 2, or hope that Manchester United, and as I said earlier, looking unlikely, but hope that Manchester United maybe nick a point off Aston Villa if they want to sneak Champions League. Now, I've seen a lot of reports about if Forest finish 7th, it's Conference League, or if Chelsea win the Conference League, then it's Europa League. I'm not really sure what's happened about that, so I'm going to park that and just so that Forest have got to maybe get 6th to get Europa League, and I think they've got that within them. You think about the Chelsea game, it's a huge day, and Forest is so good at rising to the occasion. I know at home they've been very poor, and the reason they're in this position is because they've lost or got 1 point from Leicester, Brentford and Everton at home, and that's unacceptable, really, if you're chasing top 4. And I know that at this stage of the season, the players are physically and mentally shot, and I think it's just that desire to not be written off and to show everybody that they are worthy of a European spot, really. They got them over the line today, plus the Taiwo thing, and that will get them over the line against Chelsea. I think the City fan atmosphere will be rampant. Everybody will be ready for it. And, I could see it going that way. I don't really say predict Forest to get wins very often. But I've just got a feeling that this could be, a very special way to end the season. And, when Forest have to get a result this season, they're 9 times out of 10, they very often have. So one last hurrah. Let's hope the lads have got it in them to do that. And, whether it's Champions League, Europa League or Conference League, wherever we're going up to Europe next season, we'll be celebrating it at the time. Let's just cross our fingers that maybe it could be Europa League or at best Champions League. Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for Tom for joining me earlier. Hopefully the baby's settled down now. And thank you for listening as well. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. We'll be back for the Friday 5 later on in the week. And then the big one, the decider, the European playoff. Chelsea come to the City Ground. We'll be having a match review from that as well. All the links to the podcast and to the social media are at the words 1865.football. We've got one game to go, and I'm going to leave you with my favourite Brian Clough quote. I hope nobody's stupid enough to write us off.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
In honor of Military Appreciation Month, Verizon thought of a lot of different ways we could show our appreciation, like rolling out the red carpet, giving you your own personal marching band, or throwing a bumping shindig. At Verizon, we're doing all that in the form of special military offers. That's why, this month only, we're giving military and veteran families a $200 Verizon gift card and a phone on us with a select trade-in and a new line on select unlimited plans. Think of it as our way of flying a squadron of jets overhead while launching fireworks. Now that's what we call a celebration, because we're proud to serve you. Visit your local Verizon store to learn more. $200 Verizon gift card requires smartphone purchase $799.99 or more with new line on eligible plan. Gift card sent within 8 weeks after receipt of claim. Phone offer requires $799.99 purchase with new smartphone line on Unlimited Ultimate or Postpaid Unlimited Plus. Minimum plan $80 a month with autopay plus taxes and fees for 36 months. Less $800 trade-in or promo credit applied over 36 months. 0% APR. Trade-in must be from Apple, Google, or Samsung. Trade-in and additional terms apply.